We just talked about job interviews these days, which now inspired me to record this video, because over the last weeks we conducted easily over 50 job interviews, both at our tech company Building Radar, but also at our training and coaching company Firm Learning. And it's just mind-blowing to me what happened in some of these interviews, how some of these candidates behaved. And I just want to pass on some of my reflections on that, some of my tips, which I think will help you as well if today in these days you are conducting interviews, actually you're participating in interviews as well. And rest assured, based on what I will now share you, these have been candidates who actually already before have been vetted by HR. They already went through an HR screening. These are candidates who are applying to high 5-digit, if not 6-digit jobs. And still the following is absolutely true, what I will now share with you, right? And the number one observation, the first insight, is that of course in many roles, and this is also how we do it, you will get some type of case study, some type of take-home little exercise that you will be asked to work on, especially if you're already far advanced in the process, just to help the employer to see how you are handling tasks. And what I'm now noticing over and over again over the last months, actually already starting last year, is that of course people are using AI to work on these little case studies, right? So people essentially take the case prompt, take the exercise that they receive, they paste it into their ChatGPT, they paste it into their Claude system. And then, of course, based on that, you create an output, you get some type of deliverable, and then they use this to present it. And often, of course, they also make the whole presentation with Claude. What this leads to, though, is that almost all of these case studies, they look the same. The results are almost identical. The thoughts, the ideas presented are almost the same among all of these candidates. And what's then even worse is that then even the presentation looks the same, right? So if you, for instance, use Claude, which many people are doing these days, these presentations come in a very distinct style and all the slides look the same. And here my point is not that you should not use AI. You should absolutely use AI. It's probably rather negative if you don't use AI to create these things at all. But what you need to realize is that essentially the output that you receive, if you just paste the case study into such an LLM and then add a few sentences of prompt, this is now the baseline. This is the bare minimum. This is what everybody will be able to do. And then what you will be actually measured against is what are you able to add on top of that? How can you then add original ideas? How can you add things that then showcase your industry expertise, your personal knowledge? But don't assume that by just creating the standard case, you will be a leg up. This is not the case. This is the bare minimum. This is just the reality in this day and age of AI. Second insight, energy level. I know people talk about this a lot, but now, especially now, if you have interview after interview, I had days where on a single day I had 5, 6, 7 interviews with candidates. This is something that distinguishes candidates a lot. What is the energy that they convey also in an interview setting? Because as an employer, you want someone who in the office just amps up the energy, right? You want someone who radiates enthusiasm, energy, can do vibes that this person just brings to the office. And what you don't want is someone who sits there, bad body posture, not really energized, and you just feel like directly bored after like 10 minutes even talking to that person, because that person is talking very slowly, very quietly. But this is just not the energy you want to have in the office, and you should be aware of that, right? If you're preparing for any of these interviews and if you're then walking out in such an environment. And this has nothing to do with being an introvert or being an extrovert. I would, as you maybe know if you watch the channel regularly, I would also consider myself an introvert. But still, for instance, if I'm recording this video, I want to give you everything I have, right? I want to give you all the energy. And also if I'm sitting in a client meeting, if I'm sitting in a sales call, especially in client-facing roles, but I would argue not always and not only in these roles, it is important to be someone who radiates enthusiasm, who, for instance, in a sales conversation, who can excite the person on the other side. And that's not the case. This will not happen if you just sit there talking quietly, talking slowly, bad body posture. This just makes a huge difference, both for senior roles, but also for junior IC roles, just how you are perceived as a candidate. Third point, and I'm even shocked that I need to talk about this. I thought that this would be like standard for everyone, also like years ago, not even talking about the day and time of AI, is to arrive on time, right? And when I think back of my old interviews that I conducted years ago, I was always so afraid that, especially if I would travel somewhere, right, for such a job interview, I would arrive too late because maybe the train was delayed or whatnot. I would take like one train even before the train I usually should be able to take, or maybe even one before that. And I would typically arrive hours before the interview starts. And then maybe I would find myself a cafe to then just sit, spend some time, maybe listen to a podcast, do some reading, do some other work. And then I would appear at the office then in due time before the interview starts, and then be able to do that. And at least a third of the people now we have for the office interview, they arrive maybe just exactly on time, right? So if the interview is supposed to start at 2 p.m., they arrive maybe at 2 p.m., which then likely leads to the interview starting at 5 past or 10 past or even later. And then depending on how the calendar is clocked, this is then time that is taken away from the interviewer, from the conversation that you can have with that person. And of course, typically the interview follows a certain rhythm, certain things that the interviewer wants to cover. And this then just disturbs the whole interview flow, besides the fact that, of course, it is perceived as unprofessional. And easily 20% of people we have scheduled for in-office interviews just arrive late, arrive 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, sometimes even later. The subway was delayed. Like I was stuck in traffic. I wasn't able to find a parking place quickly enough. This, like all the stuff that we hear every day, it's just insane to me, right? Because if you even arrive late to the interview, how can you be trusted then if there's an important client meeting, if there's an important internal meeting to show up on time? If not even for the interview, you seem to care. Sorry, I was late. This happened, that happened, I was late. Yeah. And again, these are not rare exceptions. This happens all the time. And what I would recommend you to plan for smaller companies, right, where there's likely a small office, be there 15 minutes before at the client side to wait. If you're interviewing with a corporate, with an enterprise client, typically you need to also anticipate the process. You might find yourself at a reception, right? And then maybe even just the walking distance from the reception to the office where you will get interviewed. This alone might take 10 minutes, 15 minutes on these large enterprise campuses. So this is what you should factor in. And so for these types of interview settings, I would recommend you to be on site half an hour before the interview starts, at least, right, to make sure that the interview even can start on time. So be on time. Yeah? Next is AI readiness. And here it's again just crazy what most of you still don't understand how important it is. And to be fair, because we are working here for a tech company, for instance, a Building Radar, we might already be a bit more advanced in these areas than many other companies out there. But if this is not the case right now, then at least in 6 months, 12 months, maybe in some old-fashioned industry, 18 or maybe latest 24 months, so like 2 years or so, if you have not this type of AI readiness, you will be unemployable for highly paid white-collar jobs. So if you're looking for these high 5-digit to 6-digit, maybe even multiple 6-digit salaries, you will be unemployable if you are not AI ready. And with that, I do not mean that you're using ChatGPT or Claude as a chatbot. This is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is using tools, being able to use tools yourself, even if you're a senior leader, be able to do this yourself, to implement AI in processes. So essentially what this means is that, if you have today no idea what N8N is, what make.com or similar tools are, that's a big problem, because this means that you cannot implement AI in the processes in your team or of your work. If you are being asked in an interview what the coolest thing is that you have already built with Claude Code, if your answer to that is nothing, because you've never used Claude Code or like a similar system like the Codex system or whatever, that's a problem, because this means that you cannot use AI to prototype tools, prototype websites, prototype applications, prototype other things that might be an asset to your organization. It just showcases that you are not AI ready. You essentially are not an AI-enabled worker. And this is not only important for individual contributors, so essentially for junior roles. For them, it's definitely important. But it's also important for senior leaders. And this is one of the big trends that now everybody's talking about. Like if you listen to any of the blog posts of the big Silicon Valley VC companies, and this will then permutate also in all the other like traditional companies. The new team lead is not only about leading a team, but the new team lead, the new highly paid team lead of the future is a person who can improve processes in their department, who can exactly implement AI in their processes, be able to do all that. Essentially, as a team lead these days, you need to become a super IC, a super individual contributor. It's not only about delegating, because team sizes will shrink many areas. You won't have these large teams anymore anyways. And as a team lead, you need to become an operator as well. You need to be able to do this yourself with the help of AI. You need to showcase in interviews that you are able to do that. This is just my very humble recommendation. And if you're not there today, make sure to upskill yourself. I'm absolutely convinced for white collar knowledge worker positions, you will become unemployable for many positions within the next year or so if you are not doing that. And last but not least, especially now for online interviews, look after your setup. I'm just amazed. Exactly. People applying to these like 6-digit jobs, and then you have an online conversation with them, and then they're like open their shitty webcam of their shitty old laptop. The whole picture is blurry. They're sitting there with like bad lighting. It's like super grainy. You can barely see them. Super unprofessional background. They don't even use a proper microphone. The audio is bad. Sorry, I need to like connect my audio, my head cam is not working, blah, blah, blah. This is just an extremely unprofessional setup. So do yourself the favor, invest the $50 in a proper microphone, maybe even invest the $100-200 in a proper webcam. I mean, that should even be your typical standard setup anyway, right? If you're conducting like lots of online meetings in whatever capacity anyways. Because I mean, if you're not doing this, if you show that you don't care, how can I trust this employer that if you are sitting in an important meeting, in a client meeting, but maybe even internally, right? That you are caring, that you are taking care of the setup, that you are caring where you're sitting, what the background looks like. This is just the little 101, right, of sitting in these online meetings. Let me know what you think about that. I'd be super curious. Is this matching your experience as well? Any other tips you want to add, either on the employer or also the employee side? But this is just my really like real life example, real life experience on sitting in these interviews over the last weeks, and just how shocked I was from sometimes how many of these participants behaved. And I hope that based on that, there are some pointers that are helpful to you as well. Thanks to all the channel members. If you took any value, please like, please subscribe. Looking forward to stay in touch. Weekly videos here on the channel. Thank you.